Welcome, my name is Ricky, and today we're going to take a quick look at Resident Evil 7. But first, we're going to look at just a little bit of my graphics settings, just so that way you guys know what we're working with here. So, screen resolution, 1366 by 768, refresh rate, full screen display mode. Now, some people have reported a higher frame rate with full screen mode than like borderless window mode. Personally, for me, I haven't seen a big difference, but putting on full screen just to see. Now, I have the frame rate locked to 30 here. You do not have to do this. The game will run at 60 frames per second for a good chunk of the game, but there will be more slowdowns. Resolution scaling can go all the way down to 0.5. You can always go all the way up to 2, if you wanted to do that. I wouldn't. At least on the 460, I wouldn't. So I have it at 1, but it can help, especially if you're trying to play it at 60 frames per second, to just kind of even it out a little bit more. Now, here's the big thing that I will definitely tell you should do if you only have 2 gigabytes of video RAM or less. Play with the texture quality on low. It has to be the reason why I kept seeing a lot of drops to 0 in the game, because as soon as I put that on low, those drop to zeros disappeared from the game, and it smoothed out greatly. Anti-aliasing at FXAA plus TAA, that's the default. You can't turn it off, so motion blur's on, that's subjective. Effects rendering, I have it on medium. I mean, if you think it's going to have a greater impact on your frame rate, I personally haven't seen a big difference whether I have it on low or high or medium. So depth of field is on, shadow quality is on high. This is a key setting. Typically when I play more AAA-esque titles like this one, I would turn shadow quality down because that tends to just wreak havoc on my frame rate. However, turning shadow quality down in this game has some bad qualities to the shadows that create these weird like lines that are sometimes diagonal, sometimes vertical, sometimes horizontal along the textures, and it just looks super weird. So I'd rather take the slight performance hits you get with shadow quality on high. Alright, so the rest of the settings, dynamic shadows are on. Shadow cache is off. I read that someone suggested that if you had lower amounts of VRAM, like the RX 460 only has 2. If you have the 4 gigabyte version, you might get away with turning it on, but ambient occlusion, I have it on SSAO variable. Bloom is on, lens flare, volumetric lighting, high. I mean, there's no real noticeable frame rate difference when I turn it down to low, so, or none. So, high it is. Variable reflections, I don't even know what subsurface scattering does, but it's on. Chromatic aberration off, and then color space RGB. Alright, so we are in the main house section of the game. I should tell you now that there will be no spoilers in the video of this. We're just going to walk around the main house while I talk about the game. And I want to start off by saying that there are a lot of people who have argued that this game is not a Resident Evil game, and I think keys like the Scorpion key and the Snake key and the Crow key really kind of make it a Resident Evil game, but that's not the only way. Alright, so you notice a slight slowdown there in performance leaving into this area. I've noticed that sometimes it does it, sometimes it doesn't. But here, this is where I knew, oh, this is definitely a Resident Evil game. This is, well, it's a broken shotgun right now, because I have the regular shotgun. The regular shotgun, but the regular shotgun is usually right there. It's where you start the game. You have to go find the broken shotgun, bring it in here, pick up that shotgun, pick up the non-broken shotgun, and then put the broken shotgun back in there. Because see, what happens when you just pick it up is, oh look, you get trapped in the room. And if another game does that, they stole it from Resident Evil, because Resident Evil has been doing it since day 1. This is the second time I played through the game. This is the Albert gun you get at the beginning of the second game. It's more powerful than either of the other regular handguns you get. I don't think it's more powerful than the 44 that you can get, because you can get a 44 Magnum, but I also only have 1 bullet for that gun right now, so I'm not going to be going out and using it. But here's the 44. But it's kind of like the shotgun. It's a one hit for the leech monsters, mold monsters, not leech monsters, mold monsters. But I mean, this game genuinely terrified me. It may not be a traditional looking Resident Evil game, but believe me when I say it is a traditional Resident Evil game. Also, that's just my shadow, no reason to get scared or jump. Thankfully, when I played the game, I never did quite jump at my own shadow, but I've already got all the stuff in this area, so. But I imagine it was probably pretty close to me jumping at my shadow at a couple of times. It's so tense at times when you're hiding from characters. It's actually just a really good game, save for some performance issues. Like I mentioned before, if you have a card with lower VRAM, even if you have a card that you think it should ostensibly be able to play the game, because it needs a lot of VRAM for the textures, you're going to have a lot of slowdowns playing at whatever frame rate you want to play at. I've just noticed that locking it to 30 kind of smooths things out a bit. Playing with the textures on medium or high will cause the frame rate to occasionally drop pretty severely, and I'm pretty sure it's because of that. Because, like I said, when I put it on low, it went away completely. You know, and the thing about the low textures versus medium textures is I don't see a big difference between the two of them. What I see a difference is in the performance. Like I was saying, this game is genuinely terrifying. It feels just like every other Resident Evil game I have played. You know, which admittedly isn't a lot of them, but now you notice there's another little slowdown right there. Some of those slowdowns could be attributed to memory issues. Some of those slowdowns could be attributed to the game not being 100% optimized. I think it's decently optimized once you get the settings right. However, I will say this, the game is very misleading because at the very beginning of the game, you can play it on high. It's got low CPU usage, although it has low CPU usage through most of the game anyway. But it has really low CPU usage at the beginning of the game. Even for my very low-end CPU, it has low CPU usage. So I have not picked this lock, and I have a lock pick. So let's see what's in here. Shotgun shells. That's might be useful. I have 22. So I mean, this game is gross. It's just gross. Oh, it's just gross. Gross. I did say in a previous video I thought this game would be Game of the Year 2017. That I had forgotten when I said that another game was coming out by the name of Breath of the Wild, which is coming out in March, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be my Game of the Year. Just because it's a Zelda game, and, well, Zelda trumps Resident Evil every time. I mean, the worst Zelda game for me would beat a Resident Evil game. So, I mean, that's just for me. I know other people, you know, might disagree with that. They might say, oh, well, no, but this is my Game of the Year, and that's fine, because it's good enough to be Game of the Year. If you're worried about performance on, you know, your budget system, you should know that if you're willing to play it at 720p, I don't really see a problem with performance. Lock it to 30, things smooth out really, really nicely. Also, these save rooms are the best. I mean, the game is a fun game. I don't really have much more to say about it other than that. Like, if you liked Resident Evil 1 through 4 / Revelations and Revelations 2 and Code Veronica and those, like, more traditional Resident Evil games, you're going to love this game. However, if your favorite game in the Resident Evil series are 5 or 6, then you probably won't like this game that much. But it is definitely a return to form. Well, this has been my very, very brief review / observations about Resident Evil 7. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.